But another instance in the Abbasid Caliphate was that of al-Muqtadir's mother, Shagab. Al-Muqtadir, when he became caliph, he was very young, and his mother became his regent. Even though she did not have official status, she was her son's trusted advisor and guardian, which allowed her to be a political entity at this time. And she influenced politics from the harem itself, and she had her own secretaries and people she put to her son's advisors, but she did this all from within the harem. She never left it. So then moving on to the position of the Kahramana, they practiced in state affairs in indirect manners. They acted as court messengers and delivered confidential documents and notes between the caliph and the caliph's mother. And the most influential Kahramanas were from al-Muqtadir's caliphate, including Fatima, Musa, Zaydin, and Thumal. Fatima and Musa had political alliances that made them have political power. Musa in particularly had some very good she was a big part of political affairs, and at one point, according to the historian El-Sheikh, she acquired enough power to stand up against viziers. When she quarreled with them, she managed at times to have them dismissed, imprisoned, tortured, and their property confiscated. That's a lot of power for one woman to have. Thumal and Zaydin had a more judicial stance. Thumal was one of the only women at this time to be appointed to a judgeship in the Muslim court in the district of Rusafa. This was really big. Women were not allowed in courts, and for some reason the caliph allowed her to be. And also the other Kahramana, Zaydin, she had enough trust from the caliph that she could make her home into a prison, a political prison for viziers who had been kicked out, and through her she could talk to the caliph to try and have the prisoners reinstated in their political positions. And also at this time, women had to work with male officials. Those are examples of women working with male officials. Women couldn't get anything done without the men's help. The men worked on the outside of the harem to help the women, and the women formed temporary alliances to help influence the caliphs, because they had the caliph's ear, because the caliph liked to drink and see his women every once in a while. Well, not every once in a while, actually, every day. And that's the political influences. And moving on to the next step, the hierarchical structure of the harem created economic opportunities for basically the Kahramanas and the queen mothers themselves. According to the historian El-Sheikh, the Kahramana named Musa held the purse of the harem and was generally in charge of paying the servants of the palace. She had to work very hard to defend how much money the harem got each year, and she had a prearranged staff that she had to pay for. The harem itself was supported by money, by extravagant purchases of textiles and such luxurious goods that stimulated the local economies. So basically the harem was just a place with lots of big cushy pillows, nice carpeting, flowing veils, and all this really fancy stuff. It was very beautiful from what it's described as. The queen mothers, on the other hand, lived very abundant lifestyles. They received an income from landed estates and subsidies of the public purse. Kaisarona in particularly received an annual income of 160 million silver dirhams, which was the currency of the Islamic world. And she gained this from the land. She basically had one half of the entire land tax. Also, Shagab, she also received money from the state, and hers came from agricultural estates that she had earned from several land grants. Now, these women weren't greedy people. They gave back to the Muslim community through charity, to the Hajj, which is a very important step in Muslim. It's the pilgrimage they make to Mecca every year, or at some point in their life. And Shagab in particularly donated 1 million dinars from her estate every year to the pilgrimage, and her money provided the pilgrims with water tanks, doctors, and she also ordered the maintenance of the reservoirs so they could drink, because they're in the desert, so they need water. It's very important. This type of philanthropy was very important for these women, but also at this time, the harem was a very big strain on state finances, and in times of crisis, it was bad because they were short on money. But also, the queen mothers acted as a financial reserve for the caliphs. And in one such crisis in 927, the Carmathians marched on Baghdad, and the state lacked the funds to support their army. So Shagab transferred about 500,000 dinars, which are gold coins. They're a lot higher up than the silver dirhams, and she transferred that money to the treasury, and it enabled the military to expel the Carmathians, and it really helped their empire at the time. In conclusion, the structure of the Abbasid harem greatly influenced the lives of women living within it on a social, political, and economic level. The higher up in the hierarchy you lived, the better off you were, and the Kahramana and the queen mothers enjoyed the highest benefits in this time. They also had the most economic and political influence in the harem, while within the harem itself, the social fabric of the other women revolved around these women, especially the queen mother. They either wanted to be her or they wanted to be on her good graces so their children would be good. Kaiseron and Shagab demonstrated the influences of the queen mother based on what their sons' governments allowed. But also the women of the harem lived their lives to the best of their abilities, and the caliph treated them to a very luxurious lifestyle. Now, what I learned from from doing this research was that women did not have a big say at this time. It was very, very closed-minded. They had certain roles, basically, to defend the honor of their family, which was don't be seen by other men, don't make contact, don't talk to them, or you were seen as a loose type of girl, which wasn't good at all. Prostitution was looked down upon, except for people outside of the harem, outside of the Islamic Empire, which was basically all the slave girls who were brought in from other countries and places that the empire had conquered. One interesting note was there are not a lot of primary sources for this type of research. Women didn't get to write a lot. The only thing they could write was a couple pieces of poetry, and that was from the slave women themselves, who were very highly educated. So basically we had to go off of what male men wrote in a historiography, which is a collected history of oral traditions and memory, which are very loose in interpretation. So it's hard to go off of, but we have to believe what they wrote. And those are the main points of my paper.